Hello everybody, Strangers123 here today with something a little bit different actually. It's not so much going to be about the replay I'm going to show you in the background, although to an extent it will be, you'll see later. However, if you've read the title of the video, this is mostly an announcement slash offer that I'm doing for you guys, where I will basically go over your replays, like the name suggests. It's a replay analysis. I go over your replays, if you want to send any of them in, and well, I simply commentate on them. But not just like, I don't know, take for example, well, pretty much most other YouTubers. It's going to be a lot more on the focus of learning and education, and on you and your gameplay, and what you want me to have a look at. Now, well, I'll just get it out here. It will be in the description as well. If you are interested in this, send replays to replays.strangers123@gmail.com. Of course, this will be in the description. I'll mention it at the end of the video as well. Let's just select my planes so you can see what's going on with them in the background. But yes, there are, first of all, different ways I can go over and look over your replays. Of course, down a lot to what you want me to do. If you do submit a replay, this is, well, kind of important for you to write to me. If you want me to have a look at any specifics, such as, for example, your aim, if you feel you are aiming on a certain part of a ship that you shouldn't be, such as angled battleships, whether you should be just, trying to shoot through the ship and hope for penetrations, or if simply what you're shooting at you're just not able to effectively damage and you should either find a different target, or if that's not available, spam AG at it. Stuff like your awareness, whether you should have been, in my opinion, or should not potentially have been expected to have been aware of certain things. Not just, what you see on the minimap, as if you look at the minimap right now. What I've noticed is that the enemy's carrier is not around the middle. Now, this is a pretty old replay, so back then, a lot of enemy planes would just simply be found at the middle of the map very early on. So I'm splitting my fighters off towards the side of the map to spot a potential inbound snipe, while I'm leaving my dive bomber somewhere around the middle of my strike to see if there's any potential targets that I can go in and drop on. But before I stroll too far off topic, it is the awareness of things like mostly destroyers. Potential angles of being torpedoed, potential angles of incoming fire, stuff like this that I'm thinking of here that I could, well, comment on, I guess. And also, there's the level of detail. Do you want me to pick up every single little bit of detail, such as the exact point of turn, exact impact of enemy shells that you potentially could have read and maybe managed to make what was 1 hit on your ship into 0 hits on your ship if you made just the correct turn with slowing down at the right time to thread the needle of incoming shells, something you normally don't think you do for shells, more actually for incoming torpedoes, where you would naturally think of threading the needle between them. Or if you just want to go with general gameplay, such as you should have been attacking the other side of the map, or you probably should have focused the battleships, things like that. And if you just watch me there, I do a counter-strafe against the enemy fighters, and, well, I didn't actually manage to pick too many of them up. I did, however, kill half of them off. And of course, I do actually have another replay analysis for World of Warships that if you want to have a look at, I will leave as an annotation that you can click on right now on screen. This is one of the ways I can do it. Of course, if you want me to use a bit more normal voice, I ask that you simply leave that in the message for me with your replay. So, how do we actually go on about submitting replays? Well, like I said, I have a replays email that I would prefer you to send your replays to. It allows me to gather up any submissions in a convenient place for me. And, well, long story made short, I need the replay. This is the most important part. I do have old installations separate that I can watch replays pretty much down to, like, May 2015, and that's quite a long time ago, actually, believe it or not. That's well into the closed beta. Although, of course, probably isn't much point in analyzing the gameplay of anybody else's game at that point in time, because it was so far away, and you know, people play differently, people learn, people evolve. Plus, the actual biggest important thing is that this affects pretty much everybody. The server meta evolves, the changes to the ships evolve. For example, there is no 033 Hiryu anymore. There is no 030 Hosho anymore. You know, armor exists in the game, so... And this wasn't back during the period, for those close beta people that might remember, when cruisers could literally sit bow onto Yamato and take 0 damage from the front 7 salvos in a row. Anyways, it would also be really nice, but not exactly a necessity, for you to send in the post-battle results screens. Of course, it makes it a lot easier to have a look at your total performance if you do have your post-battle results screens available. If you do not, for some, you know, for example, you didn't take screenshots of them, then that's fair. At least I will know your damage, the amount of hits you got, and if it really is important, we can always calculate how many shots you fired, how many missed. Stuff like that, but it really isn't that important. Anyways, seeing as the enemy carrier didn't decide to make a snipe on me, he was just very, very delayed in doing anything on the map, and, well, yeah. I'm not really able to defend this Königsberg, so he's probably going to go down to the shelling of 3 incoming cruisers. As I finally do actually eventually realize that my 3rd fighter squadron should be pulled back since it's low on ammunition, as an enemy fighter squadron starts coming over my own ship. Now the enemy fighter squadron is about to make a mistake. I'm not going to show it to you, but the enemy carrier strafes over my ship while he's being fired at by my anti-air, losing more planes. He managed to kill one of my fighters. However, 1 fighter for the loss of the entire squadron is by no means a trade worthwhile, especially considering, as of yet, he's only demonstrated 1 fighter squadron, so he could be 1-2-2, which means he's stock, and that means he doesn't have that much fighter power overall regardless. Sure, he might, well, he'll have a few more replacements, but at the rate that I'm killing them off, and the utility I have of having an extra squadron over him, is definitely not worth him throwing away, well, 4 planes to strafe away 1 of mine. Especially considering I have the air supremacy skill, something that's ridiculously broken. Anyways, this is actually a replay from back in January 2016, so it certainly is quite a long time ago. And back then, I didn't actually have a higher tier carrier than my Hiryu. I stopped at the Hiryu and never really advanced past that. Group 7, we're under attack. And this was back when I really wasn't that confident in my own carrier abilities and didn't really feel like advancing the carrier line past into tier 8. Of course, thinking back on it, Shokaku is just such a stronger carrier than the Hiryu, but I really liked the Hiryu back then as well, because it's such a strong training ship. You have 2 fighters, 2 torpedo bombers, and 2 dive bombers. It teaches you a lot about the game, especially how the carrier gameplay works. Why so? Well, the reason for that is because you have 2 fighters, which means you can actually contest the aerial game. You have 2 torpedo bombers and 2 dive bombers, which means you have enough aircraft to practice and forward your strike. And you have a good amount of squadrons, 6, which means you have some micro you need to deal with to be able to perform fully. Now I spot an enemy Isokaze as this Königsberg decides he's going to turn away, and my other fighter squadron spots something in the middle of the map as... Yeah, the enemy cruiser makes a hilarious... Whoa, that was a late voice message, but he makes the hilarious mistake of turning away from my torpedo bombers after I dropped them nicely on his side, eats a good chunk of them and goes down, which is definitely a mistake on his end. Had he continued turning, chances are he would, if he was lucky, only eat 2 torpedoes. If he was a bit unlucky, he'd eat 4. But chances are he could barely pull through that, maybe. Anyways, the enemy carrier seems interested in making a strike, so I go in, pick up his fighter with a lock, while the other one is just sitting there spotting the Mutsuki. However, since the enemy carrier strike is still a fair bit off, I don't really have a desperate need to pull the fighter over until about now, which I do. Now, the enemy's fighters are, because they're just simply furballed, all I have to do is use my second one, since the enemy carrier, and this is important, only has one fighter squadron, then I can do stuff like this to his incoming strike plane. Now I eliminate the rest of the enemy carrier's fighters, and I also drop the Königsberg, something in retrospect I should not have done. I should have just been more patient. I latch onto the dive bomber, since that's heading in there first, to give the Koenig's anti-aircraft more time to work. However, I run out of ammo, something I did not realize, and that's a mistake on my end. However, the Koenig should be able to finish off that incoming dive bomber squadron before swapping his anti-aircraft to the torpedo bomber. And if he's playing to delay, he'll be able to delay himself long enough for my fighter to intercept the torpedo bomber as well. And there we go. The torpedo bombers get taken down as I'm cycling my aircraft. Deciding to keep my number 3 squadron in the air, but hey, let's leave that be for the moment. Now, otherwise, in terms of analysis and how I could go over your replays, I could, for example, go over in more detail. Probably even detail that you probably wouldn't consider, well, even detail I really wouldn't consider mostly in the game, such as, you know, precise, more, you know, accurate things like this. You don't really want to drop from the side against a target that doesn't have that great AA. You should be changing your ship's angle, and there you go. I do manage to pick up the kill, but I should have changed the angle to potentially get more bombs dropped on him. I could also have kept my ship movement even better, keeping myself just outside of the, well, a little bit farther outside of the spotting range, and kept full control of their destroyers this game. Or I can go into even more further detail and pick up each individual drop I made, such as the one on the Cleveland. If you noticed it from the earlier, the enemy's Cleveland did not react properly to my aircraft and actually managed to go down to enemies, well, that would be our team's shelling. However, if I had made the drop better, I would have been able to pick him up with my raw torpedo bomber Alpha instead of having to wait for a flooding damage over time, which would have actually killed him. And here we go. You can see I'm making a very poor drop on this Nagato. Not going to be able to hit too many of these torpedoes.
Torpedoes to port.
Something I should have considered and adjusted my aim slightly better to be able to hit all of those torpedoes. I just managed to miss the one, which is a little bit unfortunate, since that could have been additional damage. And there you go, not paying too much attention to my fighters. However, the enemy fighters seem to be getting deplaned, but I don't really want to take the risk of his fighters arriving to catch me, so I'm just going to do a sideways strafe, unable to pick up all of the enemy's planes. I do manage to kill one of my own as well. However, I've done enough damage to the enemy carrier's inbound strike wing that chances are it's not going to be that much of an effective strike, as my other fighters on the other side of the map basically not doing anything. And I'm keeping a dive bomber underneath a Nagato's anti-aircraft, allowing it to work, killing off 2 of my planes already before I am able to react. Thankfully, 3 of them managed to drop. However, RNG does kind of shaft me on this one. And you can see the enemy's torpedo bombers are actually coming for me. And focusing my anti-air, my autocannon not being too bad, turning in towards the bombers. And this is the important thing about you know, reacting and keeping your ship on the move at all times so that you can actually react to incoming planes. And since he's using auto drops, well, this isn't even going to hit me. Now, for those of you guys that may have or may not have watched my other replay analysis video, I can also put up with different accents, comrade. Of course, only if you want. And what the fuck, there is now Mutsuki in my face with dive bombers coming in. This is like no bueno. However, at least thankfully my torpedo bombers are cycling and I can get them up into the air on time, maybe to be able to delay this Mutsuki. However, I'm making a pretty poor turn in terms of surviving this due to the fact that he knows how to torpedo. I'm probably screwed. He's not so happy about his, I guess you could say, secondary shelling right now. However, my torpedo bombers really should be trying to lock him down and prevent him from exactly torpedoing, but he really wants to get straight up into my face. My secondaries are working. My secondaries do actually manage to take him out. He doesn't fire torpedoes at me, thankfully, and I use my damage control party in a pretty poor fashion, not able to actually stop any flooding on my ship in the event that that would have been set. That was a misplay on my end, not keeping track of the Mutsuki that I spotted going to A earlier. And this Isakaza seems to be reacting to my torpedo bombers, or at least seems to be reacting to something. Or not, he was just doing random turns, so torpedoes in the water, heading in for him. The drop looks pretty good. Finally realizing that he is in fact under attack by the carrier. Dive bomb is going into I don't bloody know where. However, the Isakaza makes the mistake of turning away from the torpedo bombers, eating 2 of them and going down. Another devastating strike to pick up for myself. 16 torpedo hits, 37 planes shot down. And now I definitely should be trying to pick my ship up and heading it more south, something you don't really see too well in replays. However, I am doing that, seeing the fact that the enemy carrier was down there. The enemy battleship wouldn't be too major of a problem since I can kill that myself, and the enemy cruiser currently spotted on the eastern side of the map doing nothing. But yes, multiple ways of doing it. Like I said, just to summarize, replays, go to replays.strangers123@gmail.com. Of course, this will be in the description. If I remember, if I don't, just tell me in the comment section that I forgot with here comes a very ugly head-on strafe. However, I do manage to pick up most of them due to the overpoweredness of strafing back then. But yes, replays, go to that email. If you want to, send your post-battle result screens with a little bit of comments on the game, such as any specific part you want me to have a look at. Also, if you feel for it, tell me what kind of detail, such as completely detailed, or just go over it, casual commentary, or if any other specific requests you have that you think I'll be able to pull off, feel free to send them in. And if you have any specific moments within the game that you wish me to focus on, such as a certain decision you made, a decision to go to a certain side of the map, or a decision to attack a certain ship, or focus, or whatever. So that pretty much summarizes everything I have to say about this offer for you guys as a replay analysis service. I hope you guys send in your replays. I hope you guys are able to get a lot of value out of sending replays into me if you feel that you want to. And yes. Let's finish up this replay as the Congo now trying to turn towards, keeping his bow towards my torpedo bombers as I damage control party the fire, leaving my fighters to spot the enemy Hiryu coming down the 1-2 line. Make another drop on the Congo. He not so certain exactly how he wants to react to this, but certainly turning towards it would be the correct thing to do. I think he's trying to turn away, which means he is 100% stuffed, taking him down. 5 kills, Kraken unleashed. Enemy carrier D-plane taking down the final torpedo bomber squadron, leaving only this one 4-plane squadron left, setting up behind them for a strafing, with the second fighter squadron going to attack the one plane surviving in the other dive bomber squadron, which is also getting D-plane. Enemy carrier reacting to my movement of potentially strafing him, so I'm just simply going to auto-attack him to prevent him from evading my strafing. Other fighter squadron definitely wanting to pick up that last dive bomber, managing to kill it pretty early, using minimal ammunition, locking down the second one as my torpedo bomber, my fighter squadron is killing off the enemy torpedo bomber squadron, denying that threat, turning back towards the Hiryu to be able to potentially launch my aircraft and cycle them faster, and maybe even get some secondary damage in against them. Managing to dive bomb the Hiryu, pretty unfortunate drop, but definitely not the world's best placed one either. And with the enemy carrier pretty much 100% D-plane now, I am safe in resupplying my fighters. Although, to be honest, I do not need to because he's 100% D-plane, and I can just leave my fighters there. Friendly York coming in will pretty much prevent this Hiryu from being able to pull a funny, such as ram me, and he's on solid enough health. Torpedo Bomber Squadron coming in. The enemy Hiryus uses damage control party, so flooding and fire will stick permanently on him, and we can finish him off. As of now, I've managed to pull off 21 torpedo bomber hits, and with hilariously poor flying like this, I'm probably not going to get too much. And you're probably thinking at this game, if you play the Hiryu right now, holy crap, I'm leading a lot of, getting a lot of lead for my torpedoes, because this is back in the old time when the torpedo bomber, if I remember correctly, had 121 knots of speed, which meant they were pretty slow, and with targets being reasonably fast, you had to aim ahead of them quite a lot more. Definitely an ugly looking drop, however it doesn't really matter at this point because the carrier was so low health, I just needed to hit him once. Our destroyers are currently trying to deal with this last enemy Pensacola, 1810 health. Mitsuki very brave opening fire on him, but he has enough health to survive quite a good time. And the other Hatsuhado locking down the cap. Anyways, certainly a pretty solid game. 723 points to 280 right now. We're slowly ticking up a little bit more as the Pensacola is knocked down to about almost 500 health. Lutski firing a pretty overkill torpedo salvo. Looks like he's gonna find a hit on him, which would definitely be the kill, as it's unlikely he has sections that are beyond damage. And we finish off this game with a pretty solid result. In the end of it, we managed to pick up 23 torpedo bomber hits, 21 dive bomber hits, which is pretty solid for a Japanese carrier, especially back then when the Hiryu had much slower planes. 2 devastating strikes, 13 fire sets, nothing really to complain about here, but the most important thing being 63 planes shot down, negating pretty much everything except the first strike against the Königsberg, where I was predicting or anticipating an inbound enemy snipe against my ship. A meta that definitely existed back then, and certainly not something that you want to lose your ship to an early game snipe, especially to slow torpedo bombers and dive bombers that the Hiryu would have had. So picking up the clear sky there is certainly nice. With the team scores, we can see 2,621 experience, almost doubling that of our New Mexico's. 63 planes shot down, with my division mate in New York managing to pick up 5, and the New Mexico managing to pick up a couple as well. Not actually sure if all of these are carrier-based aircraft. There could have been some float planes around. And we can see that the enemy's aircraft carrier only managed to pick up 9. Some of these were to his own anti-aircraft, with the rest of the ships barely picking up any. Nagato picks up, I think, 2 or 3 of my dive bombers that were circling over his head, not doing anything. And this is, of course, back in January, which meant that the Nagato doesn't actually have that strong anti-aircraft. Otherwise, nothing too special with this game in that sense. 124,286 torpedo bomber alpha damage, certainly not bad. Fire set 21,793 with minimal flooding and 409. This was back when flooding wasn't anywhere near as powerful as it is now. So going for the fire damage over time was certainly more worth it. And with 2 devastating strikes against destroyers and otherwise torpedo bombering some cruisers away. Actually no, one of them was a cruiser, but mostly targeting ships that do not have the ability to heal too much. There isn't going to be too much damage over time. And with 5 kills, the 124,000 torpedo bomber alpha is really what I relied on for the damage in this game. Certainly, if I had done my attacks a little bit better, such as fire, wait for the damage control party, or even flooding, wait for the damage control party, go for another flooding and 4 fires, if you get lucky enough to get the RNG to drop on that. And of course, if my dive bomber drops had been a little bit better, I could potentially have gotten more fires. But, well, I'm just going to excuse myself with, hey, I sucked dick back then. But we all learn from our mistakes, but most importantly, in my opinion, it's important to learn from what you did right, just as much as it is to learn from your mistakes. And a lot of mistakes that you may make in a game are going to be pretty obvious, such as sail broadside to battleship and got deleted. So that's not really something that matters too much, but it's going to be the small details. And in my opinion, this is something that's actually quite special about World of Warships, is that while the entire game is pretty macro heavy on the game, i.e. a lot of it is about your major decisions, your minor decisions do actually play quite a big role in the game. And sometimes I feel it can be difficult to realize this while you're actually playing the game. So having the ability to look through them over your replays, for example, or have somebody else go through them, could potentially give you a different insight on your game. Anyways, I hope you guys like this replay. If you want to send me replays, send them to replays.strangers123@gmail.com. Don't forget to, if you want to, write a little bit about your replay, write a little bit about what you want me to have a look at, if there's anything specific that you want me to have a look at. And also, it would be certainly nice if you could leave your post-battle results screens with your replay. Don't worry about all versions, I can simply open up the replay in text form and I'll see which version of the game I would need to view it. And like I said earlier, I have the ability to view replays down pretty much to May 2015. However, I don't really think there's too much of a point in analyzing the gameplay of a replay back then. So if you do send me one of those, it's really just going to be for entertainment purposes on the channel. Anyways, like I said, hope you enjoyed this. Hope to see your replays on my channel if you want to send them in. And I will catch you in the next one.